regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington. It is Tuesday, February 4, the year is 2020, and it is 7:06 p.m. The clerk will please call the roll.
President Richardson.
Here.
Trustee Burke.
Here.
Trustee Mitchell.
Here.
Trustee Perkins. Trustee Rigby.
Here.
Trustee Schaller.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here. Wonderful. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 4 this evening is approval of the minutes from our meetings last month, both the special committee of the whole and the regular Board of Trustees meetings. Are there questions, comments, or edits for the clerk? There being none, the chair would like a motion to approve.
So moved.
By Trustee Schaller, seconded by Trustee Mitchell, excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair would like, Chair asks unanimous consent that the record remain open for 5 business days for technical and necessary amendments without objection. So ordered. Agenda item 5 is President's remarks. I really have none to offer, but Trustee Burke, do you want to talk just a minute by way of recognition?
Yes, thank you, President Richardson. Just very briefly, through a mutual agreement between Karen and myself and Ms. Scott, we have determined that her contract with the village would be terminated at the end of February. She is now has a full-time job, and we have made tremendous progress on our economic development efforts. It was her intent to be here tonight to do a summary of the work that we achieved collectively as a committee with her support, and to personally thank the board for the opportunity to serve us in that capacity. Unfortunately, she's ill, and so we told her to stay home and get better, and we will reschedule this event for next month's meeting.
She's done a splendid job. It's wonderful that she's got a new opportunity.
And that will give us a chance to both hear her report, thank her personally if that's so inclined, and have her be recognized for her contribution.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the first opportunity in the agenda for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. No one seeking recognition. We can move to agenda item 7, which is the consent agenda. We move in this section of the agenda to approve by omnibus vote all the items so listed. Illinois law permits municipalities to adopt by one single unanimous roll call vote of the Board of Trustees and the village president a group of designated ordinances, orders, resolutions, or motions placed together for voting purposes in a single group. Following the motion second, a brief discussion may be held about a designated item. If lengthier discussion or debate is needed, any trustee or village president may request that the item be removed, and those items will be considered during the regular course of the meeting as they appear on the agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and be enacted by one motion in the form listed above. There will be no further discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed. So we have 4 of them this evening. A, 2018 ICC building code adoption. B, 2020 road program design. C, HVAC furnace and air conditioner replacement. And D, zoning map. We met on these topics in the committee of the whole, and the administrator walked us through and provided us with a review of the details related to these items. Any further questions or discussion on these matters?
I didn't know whether or not want to address the fire code difference at all.
No, it's perfect.
It is.
And I appreciate everything you guys do. You're always very progressive in everything you do related to codes and standards, and it shows continually. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It's so rare that I hear those words spoken. The chair would like a motion to approve in block the agenda items listed under consent agenda 7A through D. May I have that motion? motion?
So moved.
By trustee Scheller, may I have a second? Seconded by trustee Thompson. And I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Scheller.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Trustee Rigby.
Okay,
I'll send it for good.
thank you. Agenda item number 8 is the treasurer's report. Mrs. Hirsch.
Good evening. So you have before you the financial statements for the 8 months ended December 31st, 2019. That makes us, cranking along in our year. And we'll start on page 2 on the flash report. You can see we have total assets of $10,431,000, current liabilities of $372,000, equity of $2,059,000. So our assets equal our liabilities plus our equity. Total revenues, $2,071,000 for the 8 months ended December 31st, 2019, and total expenses are $1,780,000 for a net income of $291,000. You see that compares to this point last year at $348,000. We'll do our pull-out down below. We pulled out our major, sort of we call major road expense items, sort of non-normal extraordinary items. You'll see below the voted line. And this month there's no new ones to mention. That makes our regular operation net income or loss $339,000 for this point through our fiscal year compared to last year at $375,000. The biggest, I brought this up, I feel like a broken record each month. Our building permit revenue is lagging. At this point last year, we're about $127,000 lower than we were in fiscal year 19. So that's not going to recover this year. It's interesting this year, there's lots of ups and downs in many categories, so you'll see we're still relatively close. At this point last year, we're about $35,000 difference. So nothing concerning there, nothing new to point out this month to the board. Happy to answer any questions before I move on to the budget. Okay, so we'll go to page 11 and 12, and you'll see our budget to actual. So 8 months in, that means we're 67% through our fiscal year. And you'll see 3/4 of the way down, you'll see total revenues. We're at 69% budget to actual, so that means we're trending well. There are some items that are, at 100%, that's a collection thing. You'll see our real estate taxes, we've collected all those taxes, so that pulls those numbers up slightly. Sort of counteracts what's going on with building permits, which is at 40% budget to actual. Are there any questions on the revenue side before I move on? Expenditures, you'll see if you turn to page 12, we'll get down to total expenditures at 55% budget to actual. The biggest sort of what I would call difference in budget to actual on this report, if you go up from the bottom about 10 or 12 lines, you'll see operation expense, and that's for the Featherling property. The budget is $420, and we've only spent $26,000, and that just has to do with timing on the outside grant and when that's going to be spent. I did notice that little box there is empty next to it. That should be a 7%. So that sort of highlights the actual budget number as an outlier from the number from the rest of them. 55% is still correct. It's not like those work together to come up with 55. That 55 is just based on totals. So in totality, the spreadsheet is actually correct. Any questions on the expenditure side? Okay. We can go to page 13, motor fuel tax fund. Really not much to mention here as well. There's been no activity. The good news is this is for the 5th month in a row we've received our 2 distributions from the state. Still trending high this month. This is actually our highest distribution this month of the year. So we had almost $15,000 for the regular MFT and $7,000 for what we're calling the Transportation Renewal Fund. And if you look on page 15, we're now breaking those 2 numbers out. So I wanted to watch the trend between those 2 numbers. So it was 1 number. Now we're breaking out. You'll see 2 line items, one for the regular MFT, one for the TRF, which is the Transportation Renewal Fund. And you'll see where it starts picking up in August. And so we're kind of watching that number. And it's interesting. There's no rhyme or reason. You can see in August we got $7,400 versus our regular distribution of $9,000. Then in December, we got less money for the TRF, but more money for MFT. So it's, I think, a little voodoo on the state's part, how they're passing this money out. IML's trying to figure it out. They change their projections each month when you read their monthly magazines. So we do the best we can with forecasting, as for next year, we use the numbers they're using now for next year, and we look at it as the year goes to make sure there are no concerning trends going the wrong way. Any questions on MFT? And that money will be used next year for road improvements. That fund balance is around 350, it'll probably, is at 372 right now currently, excuse me. And then growing about 20K a month, so we'll have a healthy fund balance in there for next year.
Next fiscal year.
Next fiscal year.
Which is this year.
Which is this year. Fiscal year 21.
This summer's project,
Yes.
summer's project, and has that project been determined yet, or is that still being reviewed?
It's
Can't remember.
still being reviewed,
Okay.
but kind of determined. We had a hierarchy of streets, and depending upon, once the engineer looks through it, that's the contract that we approved tonight, and does the pavement corners, we'll have a better idea of we're projecting we'll have about 390,000 in MFT funds to spend on road improvements this year.
Was it going to cover all those roads and then no?
No, there was a hierarchy. It was
Yes.
it was most of the roads, and then if as an alternate, depending upon what they find, because depending upon what they find with the pavement testing, some of those roads might need more treatment than others, like padding than just a mill and overlay. So the cost is different.
Thank you.
Okay, so turning to page 17, we'll look at the water sewer fund. Net current assets in there at this point of $1,500,000, excuse me. No more further capital plan expenditures for this year. There is a plan put together for next year what's going to be done. Plenty of funds in there to take care of our aging infrastructure. So unless there's any questions, I will talk about the warrants. Any questions on the financial statements? Okay, the accounts payable warrants, they've been reviewed, they're in order for your approval. There's just a few unusual ones to mention this month. On warrant A, you'll see two invoices. Actually, you'll see there's two invoices for Abrams and Condell. One's on warrant A and one on warrant B. Warrant A was actually a manual check, which is very unusual for us to do in the village. I think it's been a couple of times since I've been here. The board was pulled, and that was to put cap down for the furnaces that went out. We needed to get those furnaces installed quickly since it's winter time and there's people in the building during the day. The second check is the second half of the furnace installation, which the installation has been complete. So you'll see two requests there, each for $9,175. There's a request in there for Clark Dietz, and that's in the amount of $2,770.60. This is for an inspection of the Woodland Bridge, which will occur every 2 years. There's a request for MARS, which actually stands for Midwest Archaeological Study, and that was a phase 1 survey on the federal property. And then on warrant B, just a couple, check request for Swalco, amount of $2,925. That's an annual operations and management fee, and that's charged on a per household basis. And then finally, there's a check for Dixon Engineering, a check request, I should say, in the amount of $4,900. That's a final payment for inspection services for the media filter painting. I don't know if Karen wants to jump in on that, but that was done sometime during the year, 2018 almost, and now it's all been
Yeah,
inspected.
they get their warranty inspection as well.
It's final, right? So all these amounts have been budgeted. They're just here for your approval. All the other items in the warrants, yeah, have been budgeted. Have been reviewed and approved for payment as well.
Hey, quick question.
Sure.
Is warrant A either supposed to be in our packet, or is it supposed to be in our electronic packet?
Yes.
You should
Is
have.
it in our electronic packet? Am I missing it somewhere? Is it in the financial statements?
No, it should. Oh, I don't know where it is now.
Yeah, warrant A is in the financial, it's stamped 8B.
Which page is it?
It would be, are you looking at your PDF?
Yeah,
So
I can't find it.
it would be like in the 103rd, almost 140, page 140.
Oh, it's in the packet.
For the financials.
Yeah, did you set it up? Yeah.
That's fine, but it's in the board packet, it's not in the financial
Section.
section.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yes or no?
Yes.
That's where.
Warrant A is in the financial section of the board packet. That went out in the email that Lisa sent.
Am I missing something?
Yeah, I-
The financial, it's on the financial statement PDF?
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
Is it, that's fine, we can sort it out.
Okay.
I just thought it was me. Maybe it still is me, but then I asked my colleague over here, and he said.
It usually was, but.
You're high maintenance tonight.
Okay,
Well, what page would that be?
here, look at this. This is warranted.
Lisa, was the financial statement sent as a separate PDF or part of the whole packet PDF?
Both.
Yeah,
Both
I
was
sent
part of the
That
packet,
had to
and
be
it was a
in-
separate.
Anyone else apply to a hard copy for your approval? Because I'm a little concerned to see it.
Yeah.
Board of Trustees.
Yeah, it's fine.
I have it on my copy, so I
Never
don't
mind.
have it.
No, I think you should see it. If you don't have it, you should see it before you
Put that in
approve
your
it.
home.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're sharing a copy here,
Okay.
but if the others don't have it,
Trustee Rigby has it.
Oh, it's because he's the financial guy.
yeah, well,
Yeah, the fix is always good.
he's
Daddy,
withholding.
Daddy Warbucks over there.
Trustee Shaw, would you like a copy? Do you have one? Did you have a copy of it then, or not? Or an A? Does anyone else need me to make a hard copy?
No, so we're sharing.
No, we're good, we're sharing this one. We're sharing this one.
No, share those.
That was, it wasn't in the board packet, it wasn't in the board packet. Then you sent a separate, you put it in the board
Yeah,
packet,
so.
then you also sent
That's separate.
a
Okay.
separate thing.
So there's a separate thing, so if you go to your email, there's several attachments, and one is called financial
Right.
Right,
statements.
Yes.
and we can't find it in there.
We can't find it in there.
It's not there?
No.
And it wasn't in the board packet, because I have a board packet.
Oh, it wasn't in the board, no. So
We'll
we
do
can't
it.
find it electronically is all that we're saying, some of us can,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it's just, it's fine, we have copies to.
Well, these guys haven't seen it yet. You should.
Oh,
I don't think Trustee
You wanna
Rigby does
make-
that yet.
Yeah.
Why don't you make about 30 copies?
Here, I'll give you my copy.
I'll share, I'll look at it.
Here's my copy.
John,
Good to have a look at it.
Do you have a copy with you by chance to have an extra one, if I can get those?
We should do what all consultants tell high-performance organizations to do. Engage in a brutal round of blame assignments.
There we go.
Truthfully, I wasn't making a stink, I just thought I was completely.
Now, you said an hour ago the other room, I'm not trying to make a problem.
We'll prefer you to see it before approving it.
This is in my packet.
Speaking of
You didn't
things,
see it.
I said,
Oh, you didn't
I
want to
understand.
here we go.
I hate those damn things.
No, I understand.
I got it all, 214,000.
What do I do? Including in water and ground.
And the Jill's room.
Yeah. I don't think we'll be watching this part of the tape.
There's one down here too.
Red's.
Read it back.
No, I'm reading it. I'll do its funeral.
Wow.
Has everyone had a chance to review Warren A?
Yes.
Yes.
Warren A,
Yes.
214,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you have Warren B, I know that, so.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
We're happy.
Sorry.
Okay, that's the end of my report for this evening.
This was a test to see if you were looking.
Well, then I passed the test.
What about Ward B? Thank you.
We got more.
You
Warren
got
B was at your,
I know we haven't. We didn't approve that?
we haven't
Yeah,
reviewed
yeah,
one.
yeah, approved
They
everything.
haven't approved any of them here, now you're getting ahead.
I got a feeling we're gonna see every warrant now in multiple.
Yeah, right.
Yes, we're gonna see a billboard outside.
That's right.
FedEx those to us. Tonight, Ward B.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, are we prepared to, Mrs. Hirsch, anything else you'd like?
That is it.
Are there questions for our distinguished treasurer? Beyond those already off.
Is there a board?
See if I can warrant C.
Oh, golly. Then chair. You know, I'm on that cold list.
You are.
Can't do this tonight. I was hoping to have this meeting over at 7:30.
You got 6 minutes, or 4 minutes, you're good.
You've got time.
We can do
So
this.
Chair would like a motion to approve in block the treasurer's report agenda items A through C. A, approve the financial statements as of December 31, 2019. B, pay bills in the amount of $214,536.35 as listed on the accounts payable warrant A dated February 4, 2020, and pay bills in the amount of $72,889.40 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated February 4, 2020. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Burke. Seconded by trustee Thompson. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby? Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Agenda item number 9, the administrator's report.
Sure. A little bit of a Featherling Park update. Mars, Midwest Archaeological Survey, they completed their phase 1 study of the Featherling property and did not find any cultural material. So they will be recommending project clearance to the IPA. And our consultant has also submitted a request for a jurisdictional determination to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for their concurrence that the pond that's on that site is regulated under federal statutes. And this is to our benefit. Since we will not be impacting those waters, we expect the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approval to confirm a letter of no objection. So this is actually a faster process than if it's declared under a
Is that the waters of the
county.
United States then?
Yeah, waters of the U.S. Yeah. And President Richardson will be traveling tomorrow, so I will be presenting on his behalf for the village at the Barrington Area Chamber Economic Summit. And afterwards, I will be driving to Bloomington for the ILCMA Winter Conference and will be out of the office for the rest of the week. So if you need to get a hold of me, email's fine if nothing's urgent, or text if it's urgent, I'll get back to you as I can. And last but not least, Village Clerk, myself have been working on some Census 2020 messaging. And one of the things that we'll be getting a message out to our residents that for every person who's not counted, it'll cost the village $1,579 per person for the next census. So thank you, Treasurer Hirsch, for that number. So we're going to be getting the word out as many ways as we can for people to fill out the census when it comes. You'll be getting a postcard in March, and it'll show you how, it'll give you an option to get online or call. And if you don't do one of those things, there'll be somebody knocking at your door.
What are the census dates?
April 1st is the official census, but you'll be getting a postcard prior to that in mid-March that'll say, hey, here's the census website to go to. And so we'll be getting out messaging about how confidential it is, the reasons why it's important to fill out the census, and be blasting that on our emails, on our website, on our social media, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we have, so it starts April 1?
That's the official census day.
And it's supposed to wrap up by?
Oh, boy. Don't know.
Okay. Will we have visibility to our residents' participation, meaning rates? Will we know how we're doing?
We have those rates from the last census. It's on the census GIS map. I don't know how fast they will get us the information of who's responding. My guess is we won't know that until after the census is completely closed.
And so we don't have anything to do with knocking on doors. That's all managed by the.
That's managed by the census people.
Census people,
Yeah.
not us.
So not the village.
Well, I mean literally us, but we aren't responsible for tracking those people down.
No, we've been providing them, coordinating with information about like where our, for example, Lake Barrington Woods, which is a senior facility, so kind of how they do the counts and making sure that they know what facilities are in each town. So we've already met with them a couple of times and talked to them. That's it.
Questions for the administrator? The clerk's report is agenda item 10.
Village Hall will be closed for President's Day, which is on February 17th this year. And one other item, another program that we'll be using is called City Grows, and that will be helping us come into the digital age with our business licensing. That is really exciting, because right now there's a lot of paper and it's time consuming, so it's going to be really great. And Julie and I will be trained in that. She's going to be my backup person. And there's also a permitting component that we might use if that works well for us.
So they'll be online?
Maybe. Yeah, I think our businesses will be really happy with it, make things easier for them.
What do you do with the box of index cards?
Oh, my God.
And that also guarantees us to get email contract or not? Do they have to have an email to do
I don't know, this hasn't gone through
They-
training yet, but I think you will,
I
have
ask
to
for
send them an
emails in
account.
their applications, not everyone gives me an email, but most do. So I do have a lot of their email addresses, they just need to update them.
Lisa, do you have the dates for early voting?
I have them, they're posted outside.
That's
I think it was
Yeah.
March 17th.
It starts March 1.
Oh, sorry, that's the
Election
actual,
day,
that's the actual.
Right.
Yeah.
But this will be a location, again, for early
Here.
voting?
Yes.
Wonderful, sorry.
Questions for the clerk? Okay, agenda item 11, reports of the standing committees. I'll combine A and D. This past Saturday, the trustees met with the plan commissioners and the ethics commission, basically the village leadership, to go over the vision statement and the vision exercise of the last 3 or 4 years and the branding that came out of it and the initiatives underneath by all the committees to reinforce it. I thought it was very well received, and the big takeaway, and every one of you has mentioned this to me, so I give equal credit and equal measure, that this is something that needs to occur at least twice a year to keep us aligned and on the same page. And I found the interest level to be very, very, very keen. I was very encouraged by that. And, you know, everybody's a volunteer on those 2 commissions, so I'm especially grateful, especially grateful. And I think there was genuine consensus. We don't have a real misalignment that I detected at all. So very exciting to see that. 11B, Community Relations, Special Events and Veterans Affairs, Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Referring back to Saturday's brand development session, pardon me, Plan Commission member Frank Mansoni spoke about the issue of Lake Barrington single-family home prices and being less than expected. And, you know, he and I chatted a little bit after at the close of the meeting, and I went so far as to speak with a couple of local realtors about that issue. And it seems that, you know, that Lake Barrington is certainly not the only community in the Chicago area, in particular, that is experiencing that type of an issue. And that they point to it as really as being more of a Chicago and an Illinois-wide issue rather than just Lake Barrington. So I'm hoping to contact him and go over there with him, make sure he understands what that issue is, the totality of it.
He was the one who asked for a copy of that slide
Yes,
on the jaws of death.
Yes.
So.
yes. And second and
Just
last,
a comment on that. I also think that my recollection of that was, I think maybe we all understand there are similar challenges. I was thinking he was suggesting that the real estate community was sort of steering people away from our community, was more, meaning very specifically our community. And I don't know that,
yeah, we
if you
discussed
guys
that.
talked about that issue, because we all kind of understand generally this whole area is depressed market, real estate. But it was almost like saying, you don't want to be in this area, you want to go to other parts of
That was part of our discussion, and both the realtors I spoke with seem to feel that that is not an issue, particularly from the perspective that in effect, financially, it hurts them, you know, rather than hurting the homeowners. So they did not seem to feel that was an issue, generally speaking.
Quite on the contrary, I think areas immediately adjacent to Lake Barrington are suffering a lot worse than we are. I mean, some
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar homes are going on the market for $800,000 in adjacent communities. So I think any notion that single family especially is going down, if it is, it's modest. And as far as the attached community, it's about even the last 3 years. It's
Sure.
gone up. It hasn't-
Yeah, that's basically the essence of what they were reporting, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Secondly, the veterans of Lake Barrington Shores have what's called a military speakers bureau, where 2-3 times per year, they bring in outside speakers who have veteran-related presentations to make, and they invite the entire Lake Barrington Shores community. And the veterans are going to have a special one on this April 28th, Tuesday, April 28th, at 6:30 p.m. A gentleman by the name of Ed Bechtold, who's 100 years old, a couple of weeks ago, was a pilot in World War II, and he flew 35 missions over France and Germany, and he came back, obviously. And he's going to make a presentation to the veterans of Lake Barrington Shores. And if he's able to be in town, our president will be introducing him, which we thank him very much for. The veterans do. And this is also something that certainly is community-wide, and it will be in the newsletter, and press releases will be issued, etc. And the veterans invite everyone to come if they possibly can. And unfortunately, they won't be serving any beer or cocktails, but they will have coffee and cookies. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
President.
if you see the crowd reaction to the Super Bowl coin toss,
Yes.
it gives us a sense of what we can expect. The greatest generation. Agenda item 11C, Economic Development. Trustee Burke.
I have no report.
11E, Finance, HR, and Administration. Trustee Rigby.
I have one comment, thanks to Debbie Vernon and Mr. Chairman online for the great work in putting together the first draft of our 2021 budget, our planning budget. I think it's a very clean budget, and it's well done, as we've gotten used to.
Yeah, and it's balanced.
Well, it is now. All planning budgets are balanced.
That's right. No, I got the scar tissue. 11F, Open Space and Village Facilities. Trustee Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It was a fantastic event on Saturday. I very much enjoyed that. It was informative and just incredibly inspiring. Also, one of the other little facts and tidbits that I wanted to report but pulled back in time because we were running a little tight is that if you calculate the green open space that we're dealing with, and this is not including this immediate property itself, it's 1,160.75 acres that we are in the midst of, from Grassy Lake to the pieces that Citizens for Conservation has, and then some of it that they have that's not even marketed or out there. So I'll get more numbers, and then I've got a spreadsheet that will, when I go back and triple check these and get all that to everybody. You'll also find, when you go back to your village email, that I sent just a note about a proposal that I would like to put out for discussion over a couple of sessions in terms of setting up a Veterans Memorial for the village. And I discussed this briefly with Trustee Thompson a couple of weeks ago, and it would involve perhaps some of the space at Fire Farm, which would be an ideal spot, the area where the house was. And if you think about that, I will send these pictures around as a possibility of a memorial park or something that we could have a Veterans Memorial. I know there's a wonderful space now available at LBS, which we use on Memorial Day and Veterans Day and those things. But I think the ability to have a wider, broader space that could be every time people come to Friar Farm or they come to the Featherling Park or Featherling property, that they could do that. And I'm talking very simply in terms of pavers that, like the monogram or engraved pavers that could be in memory or in honor, or just to thank someone for their service. And rather than having a formal flagpole operation, which would require elimination, but would be ideal in that it would have, each branch of service would have a pole and a flag. I think there are other ways that we can do that so that we don't have to do the elimination and don't make it a light issue.
what are we going to continue to call Featherman? Are we going to continue to call it Featherman? Could we call it the Veterans Park?
The second part of my note that I sent to you was that that could be named Veterans Park,
What a great idea.
or Veterans Memorial Park for the village.
Yeah.
And the space, and I envision a small setup. I'm going to send you some pictures. Got inspired last fall in October, was in outside Boston in Waltham, Massachusetts, which was a incredibly blue collar and pink collar manufacturing town, the home of Waltham clocks and watches, and now is transitioned to try to appeal to a different audience. And one of the park areas, they have put in a beautiful, what they call Circle of Remembrance, which is in the middle of this park, or off the side of this park, and it is brick pavers in a circular fashion with the flagpoles in the middle. And it's very nice. The irony of this first picture that you'll see as I pass my iPad around is that there is a gentleman sleeping on the bench, which chances are he's probably a veteran. It's a sad commentary, but I don't think we can solve all the problems right now. But I think in terms of the impact of the veterans and their involvement in this community is so significant that I think it would be a fitting tribute to something like that.
I've participated as speaker in 2 dedications to Veterans Park, the one in Burr Ridge and the other one at Newton and
Oh, yes, you're involved.
And those are very well done, and there's a lot of, what do you call it, donor funding for a lot of those things.
So that's what I'll pass around is if you just swipe through these pictures, you can get an idea of some of the things. And there's some fresh pictures this afternoon from Fry Farm as well for the space I'm talking about. It's ideal, right where the house used to be. It's in between. You walk through the white picket or the white fence there, and you're in a not a savanna, but just a hardwood grove of black walnut and oak and other trees that are really nice surrounding. So, thank you, and more to come. And I hope that we can play with this, get it out there, and then bring it forward. It would be ideal if we can get something to kick off for one of our concerts, particularly if we can get that actor guy in his band, maybe. It'll be a fitting thing, but you can do it as a donation or a fundraiser thing where people buy a brick. It's you put down the pavers and then they buy a brick and you have it engraved, and that helps reverse fund them.
The Lake British Shores, the veterans, they call them memorial stones. It's the same idea.
This is beautiful, Chris. Questions, further questions, or further report?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we can move to 11G, Public Safety and Gated Communities, Trustee Scheller.
I'm just looking at pictures. Thank you, President Richardson. I'd like to welcome back the only person in the audience other than Peggy, Deputy Robin Stankiewicz, who was on for a little bit, but she's back working middays on our behalf at Lake County Sheriff's Department.
Welcome back, Robin. We missed you.
I'm all healthy now. I'm all good.
Good.
Who indicates there hadn't been an awful lot of activity. You're not aware of any. Right after our last meeting, in which it was brought up about the car thefts or the break-ins, fortunately the Sheriff's Department were able, after I think a lengthy bit of investigation, to take into custody someone who they believe has been involved in that activity, but
Allegedly.
allegedly, right. But when I understand, it just didn't happen one night overnight. There was an awful lot of investigative work that took place for quite some time.
And I sat out there at nighttime and I marked cars and I don't watch out.
Yeah, so it just didn't happen overnight. It was something that they were,
coincidental.
that they were working on for quite some time. So we thank the department. Unfortunately, Also in January, right outside our window here, there was a fatal accident on Kelsey Road, happened on January 21st. I think it's one of the first fatalities we've had on the roads in our village in quite some time too. That was, the lady unfortunately was pronounced deceased at the scene, so that happens. Karen and I both get a monthly report from the Sheriff's Department. I think it's just interesting that we had some discussions again tonight about the value of the Lake County Sheriff's Department. But just for an example, during the month of December, within Lake Barrington shores, and you could calculate this for extra patrols all over our village, business checks, especially in the industrial park and up in the marketplace, and there are an awful lot of business checks. But just for a breakdown within Lake Barrington shores, in addition to the routine patrol, there were 29 extra LBS patrols and 39 additional patrols, so almost 80 additional patrols within just 1 month. So there's an awful lot of activity that perhaps we don't appreciate or don't realize. So but it's amazing, and a lot of extra patrol, business checks, sector patrol, animal complaints, ambulance, usually for ambulances. So it's an awful lot of activity what Karen and I get, which we appreciate. And Robin is part of that, of course. I also attend, obviously, the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District, and last month was part of, they had a pinning of the badges, and among those that were elevated to the captain positions, Vincent Murphy and Eric Mandel, 3 to lieutenants, but the 2 main people, Deputy Chief Nick Esta and Chief TC, who have been with the department since they began during the so it was impressive. Usually you go to those meetings, and I'm interested to say that I'm the only representative from any of the municipalities in both Wakanda and Barrington Countryside that goes to their monthly meetings. But that night I drove up and the parking lot was full, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, because they had all these awards. And also, they again made comment about the miniature fire truck collection from the people at Lake Barrington Woods that were at LBS. And really, if you have not had an opportunity, just walk into their main office, and it's a beautiful display that otherwise would have gone probably in somebody's backyard someplace. So it really is, they did a nice job. Interestingly enough, the Lake County Fire Department District's total call volume during all of last year, Wakanda had 4,156 calls throughout the entire month. That compares to 4,105 in 2018. The Barrington Countryside had 1,956 calls compared to 1976 the year before. So there's an awful lot of activity that we also benefit from the 2 fire departments that, for the most part, take care of the village of Lake Barrington. Barrington Countryside is working on establishing another station down in the Barrington Hills area, or closer to Inverness. So they had some plans to build one close to Prairie Middle School. Didn't happen, so they've actually got a bigger piece of property in another location, so they can actually build a bigger station. And the Wakanda Fire Department, the examiner was here for our meeting, and he had indicated that he had talked to us about involving updates to the fire code in our municipal code, which we just did tonight. And obviously, as he had indicated, happy with everything that they proposed and were put into it. And as far as gated communities, as Administrator Dalton Lang put in her peak of the week, Tallgrass, which is right across the road, which used to be involved with Taylor Morrison, is now been acquired here at Taylor Morrison by M.I. Homes, and they met with Administrator Dalton Lang, the VP of Operations, Construction Coordinator, and VP of Land Acquisition, and we're very eager to obviously do whatever we can to help that development. That basically is the end of it. Not much happening in Enclave and in LBS. As long as the snow doesn't fall, we're okay.
Questions for Trustee Thompson? Excuse me. Trustee Shell?
That's okay. That's okay.
At least it wasn't slanderous. I could have called it trustee Richard.
I just think as a follow-up, that meeting came up like one day they called and we said, sure, we'll be with you tomorrow, you know, but we also invited them as they get settled to come in and talk to us as well.
I just got a text from one of the homeowners there, just as we're sitting here tonight, asking for an introduction to them, so I'll be forwarding that to you for that purpose.
Yeah.
Questions for Trustee Shell? Okay, so, would you like to report anything for Trustee Perkins on those?
No, we talked about roads earlier. So.
That's fine. There are no items under agenda item 12, 13, 14. 15 is second opportunity for the public to address the board. I see no one seeking recognition. No closed session. Chair would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.